Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
A political shock as the Lib Dems overturn a massive Tory majority to win the Richmond by-election.
It's a good morning. Start many more.
The Lib Dems claim the victory is down to their campaign against Brexit.
Today we have won, and my view is that every election is there to be fought and to be won. There is no inevitability that populist, that extreme positions have to win.
Zac sacked and the Lib Dems are back. Goldsmith defeated in Richmond by a Brexit backlash.
It may be a political bump, not an earthquake, but could it mark the reshaping of the political map of Britain? The Lib Dems say they are back in the big time after winning Richmond. So has the battle between left and right been replaced by in or out of Europe?
The campaign in the Richmond by-election against a hard Brexit paid off in spades for the Liberal Democrat victors. But is this just a controlled explosion or a political earthquake?
Let's start with the events in Richmond Park last night, though. 3 out of 3 for me. Won't tell you quite how much money I had riding on a Liberal Democrat victory at 3-1, but it became fairly clear over the course of the last few weeks that this by-election was going to be a lot more interesting than anyone expected when Zac Goldsmith called it. And I'm not quite sure why. I think it's probably got more to do with the Liberal Democrats' ground campaign than anything else. I don't know whether Goldsmith had access to any of the resources he could have enjoyed as the Conservative candidate. This is quite important, I imagine. Boring, yes. Important, possibly, probably. Would he have had access to the sort of mailing lists and all the most simple of furniture for mounting a campaign? Liberal Democrats historically very, very good at it. Question, of course, now is what do you make of it all? He was almost mayor. It's astonishing how quickly fortunes can change in politics, isn't it? Most of the fortunes that we've seen in international politics this year have been astonishing, absolutely astonishing. And this falls into that category, albeit on a much smaller scale. There's a slight danger of, I guess, seeing what you want to see. So this is the beginning of the Remain fight back, according to some corners of social media today, which is a little bit silly. My first foray into commentary upon it was about the Labour Party, actually, who managed to lose their deposit, which is quite incredible. And yet not so, really. A lot of people were explaining to me because Labour just really piled in on the Liberal Democrat side in order to unseat the incumbent, who was a Conservative, of course, in all but name. But it's also a massive Remain supporting constituency, very, very high levels of education and success, which kind of translates as a 70% vote for Remain. And it doesn't change anything at all on that front. But Zac Goldsmith was going to be mayor at the beginning of this year. Sadiq Khan was a rank outsider, you know, even unexpected to get the Labour nomination when it all started. Was it Tessa Jowell who was supposed to be a shoo-in for that? And then he just came up on the outside lane, got the Labour nomination, and then came up again on the outside lane, despite Zac Goldsmith trying to claim that everyone from his window cleaner to his wife's ex-husband, to his sister's ex-husband, I beg your pardon, had been some sort of terrorist sympathiser. The British public, or at least the London public, didn't buy it on anything like a scale that was needed to deliver success, but he didn't learn. More hubris, calling a by-election in a constituency where he enjoyed a huge majority. Should have been a walk in the park, a walk in Richmond Park, but it wasn't. So what do you make of it? That's all, actually. 6 minutes after 10, 0345 6060 973. The Labour Party lost their deposit, I think, and you'll need to check this for me, I think they got fewer votes than they have members of the constituency Labour Party in Richmond. So that either proves that it was all incredibly tactical, or it suggests another nail being hammered into the coffin of the parliamentary Labour Party as we currently know it. I don't know. And I don't think it's going to have any lasting or meaningful impact upon Brexit. I think what David Davis said in the House of Commons yesterday is a lot more interesting with regard to the unfolding Brexit shenanigans than the result in Richmond Park. But Why do you think he lost? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. No big sort of run-up today, no massive analysis. Your opinion is as good as anybody else's. Seriously, any political journalist looking at this is just reading the tea leaves. You might have been looking at the tea leaves for rather longer, actually, than the professionals have been. They've been distracted by lots of other things. I'm surprised how little attention we paid to this, to be honest with you. Me, personally, I'm just sort of putting my hands up and saying guilty. So I kind of presumed until about a week ago that it was a bit of a no-brainer, that it was a bit of a straightforward one. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need just to talk me through whether or not you think this is nationally significant or just a little bit of local difficulty. Okay? 0345 6060 973. You can email james at lbc.co.uk and you can text me on 84850. Twitter is underway, where, of course, if you already follow me, you'd have known that reports of my show being pulled today on the grounds of it being so heavily pro-Christian and in favour of Christmas yesterday were slightly exaggerated. But who knows? Who knows when that Christian backlash will begin? I'm conducting the entire programme today with one eye on the studio door, just waiting for those Christian backlash officers described by the Conservative MP Fiona Bruce in the House of Commons last week to appear at my door and insist that I stop mentioning Christmas or indeed the fact that I am a Christian. But we're all right for now. And you're quite right. I'm not going to say Brexit shenanigans again. I'm going to rename them Brinanigans. So Brinanigans are afoot. I don't think Richmond Park has an awful lot to do with it, but maybe you do, okay? 0345 6060 973. Is this big news for Labour? Big bad news for Labour, or is it actually all explainable by the Liberal Democrats' ground campaign and tactical voting? Should the Tories have put a candidate up? If you're in Richmond Park, would the Tories have won if they'd actually put up their own candidate? Or was this very much a personal mandate on Zac Goldsmith, son of a billionaire and veteran anti-Heathrow campaigner? He doesn't give good interview. I'm going to confide in you now in a way that I possibly haven't done before. I don't like meeting politicians outside studios. I'm not crazy about meeting them inside studios, but I don't like socialising with them because I think it compromises your objectivity. You'll never see me breaking bread at the Reform Club or sitting down to dinner with a bunch of MPs from the Labour Party or the Conservative Party or any party. You will never see me socialising with politicians because I'm worried about liking them. If I told you the last MP whose house I visited, you would not believe me. If I just say, let's say right on the lunatic fringe of the pro-Brexit wing of the Conservative Party, that was the last MP whose home I visited for dinner many years ago. And the reason I don't like meeting them socially is because I'm worried about liking them, and if I like them, I fear it blunts the blade of my journalistic objectivity. And Zac Goldsmith very squarely in that category. When I've crossed paths with him, I hosted a couple of hustings in the mayoral campaign, and I warmed to him and I liked him. And then he did the Islamophobic stuff, which I just thought was really ill-advised. It never sat very comfortably on him. It was as if he'd been told that was the way to go in by Linton Crosby's colleagues who were helping to run his campaign, and it never quite was, but he still did it, and he never backed off. He never said sorry. He never apologised for describing Sadiq Khan as a threat to the security of this city, talking about platform sharing in a way that was utterly cynical and disingenuous, as if you turn up on a platform to argue with somebody, that should be held against you in the future as evidence that you actually support the people you were arguing with. Absolutely hilarious. So I think the vote was probably personal. And I know he listens to the programme, although he's probably getting a bit of shut-eye now, and I know he won't like hearing that we think that. So if you want to disagree with me and make it a bigger issue than simply Zac Goldsmith, then do so. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Somebody called Rupert has texted to say that Richmond is full of very wealthy anti-Brexit lovies. It's filled with repulsive, rich pseudo-socialists who spit on the rest of the country, says Rupert. Which isn't true, actually. Richmond is full of kind of environmentally friendly, mostly middle class. You struggle to get a house for less than £1 million, so they're very wealthy, which usually means in this country that you're very well educated and therefore quite outward looking, living on the fringes of a city that has the highest immigration levels in the land, and therefore quite comfortable with multiculturalism and diversity, although it's probably worth registering that Richmond itself will be a relatively white area simply given its economic status, and they have turned around and delivered a pretty resounding rejection to a politician who until very recently was seen very much as a darling of the Conservative movement. So let's find out. What do you think it was about? Zac Goldsmith? Brexit? the Liberal Democrat resurgence, the Labour demise, the Conservative confusion, or none of the above? I'm going to give you as a starter for 10 the idea that it was very much a beauty contest. It was very much a popularity contest for the incumbent MP who called the by-election. And the reason why people rejected him, I think, probably had more to do with the mayoral campaign than it did with Brexit. But I haven't actually got a Scooby-Doo, like all commentators. I'm just sort of calling it from the outside. More to do with the mayoral campaign. That would have freaked out a lot of his core support in Richmond. Remember, it was a seat he took from the Liberal Democrats. It's not what you would call a true blue territory. And when he came out with pretty much textbook dog whistle Islamophobia with regard to Sadiq Khan during that mayoral campaign, incredibly ill-advised, still giving him the benefit of the doubt, not really meaning it himself, but my goodness me, you could argue that makes him even more culpable. If he blew a racist dog whistle that he didn't believe in, that makes him even more cynical and culpable, perhaps, than blowing it with sincerity. But if you're in the area, lots of people listening to this programme will be, although my early callers at the moment are in Bournemouth, Edinburgh and Birmingham. It'd be nice to get some people up, perhaps from Barnes and Richmond Park. And, oh, by the way, let's get all the hilarious jokes out of the way. I demand a rerun of the Richmond Park by-election. The people didn't know what they were voting for. They were too stupid to realise. And, oh, it's not actually a binding result, it's advisory. All these hilarious contributions to the political debate that, delight us all so much with their hilariousness. So we'll get all those out of the way early, focus instead on the simple question of what you think happened. I don't think it's of national significance. I don't think it's of Brexit significance. I'm not even sure it's of particular party political significance, the Liberal Democrats' celebrations notwithstanding. I think one politician with a particularly high profile stood up in a particularly hubristic way, misread the national mood, misread the lingering resentment of the tactics he employed in pursuit of winning City Hall against Sadiq Khan, and misread the runes on that by-election. Also, of course, everyone's anti-Heathrow who stood. So that kind of made him look a little bit silly. I'm the anti-Heathrow candidate. No, I'm the it was like Spartacus. I'm the anti-Heathrow candidate. No, I'm the anti-Heathrow candidate. No, I'm the anti-Heathrow. Was there a pro-Heathrow? Was there a pro-third runway candidate running in Richmond Park? The fact that I don't know the answer to that probably proves my point. Right, on with the calls. What do we make of it? Answer, at this point, even though it's desperately unfashionable not to get your knickers in a right old twist and start predicting epic changes to the landscape of British politics, what do I make of the Richmond Park by-election result? Not much, to be fair, but I'm open to persuasion. Neil's in Barnes. Neil, what would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello,
Good morning.
Hello to you.
James, I've lived in Barnes for 30-odd years now.
Do you know Angus in the Red Lion?
No.
Oh, all right, carry on. There you go. You've still got some delights to discover.
I know some of the guys in the Sun Inn, though.
Carry on.
I've been in Barnes for, as I say, 30 years. With every election, it's switched from Tory to Liberal, Liberal to Tory. So this result doesn't surprise me. What does surprise me, I'd be fascinated to know how much the Liberals spent on this election, because I live in Barnes and I've been driven mad by Liberals knocking on my door, stopping me in the street, etc., etc., etc. And I've never heard anybody from the...
Democracy. It's democracy, brother. Deal with it.
No, democracy I'm quite happy with, but what Sarah Olney was keep on about was saying, well, OK, we should have a new referendum to see if we can overturn Brexit. Well, if that's the case, if she believes that, I think Zac Goldsmith should ask for another election in Richmond to see if he can overturn the result of this election.
We got all those jokes out of the way early, Neil.
I know, but
we're not doing any more of those.
I appreciate that.
And we will talk about Brexit later, and actually I'll tell you why I don't laugh at jokes like that, because what people really mean when they say, well, we've got the result, get over it, is they say, we voted to go through a door, nobody's got any idea what's on the other side, how dare you suggest we should have a look and a chat about that before making the final decision to walk through it. And it just seems to me to defeat all the laws of logic to suggest that that leavers get to drag the whole country through a door when they can't tell us what's on the other side. But we'll do that in the second hour. You then unwittingly perhaps have suggested that this is a vote about Brexit rather than just a beauty contest or a popularity contest that Zac Goldsmith has lost.
That's correct, because every Liberal that's come round to my house or stopped me in the street has been going on about Brexit.
Have they really?
Brexit.
It wasn't about Zac. It was Brexit, Brexit. It's the only clear blue water, really, then, between a sort of wettish Tory, albeit one that campaigned to leave the European Union, and a sort of environmentally friendly Liberal Democrat, because he's very strong on the environment, he's very strong on Heathrow, he's quite strong on local issues, he hasn't been a bad constituency MP. They found the wedge, and the wedge was Brexit.
I think that's a fair comment, actually. But as I say, I'd be fascinated to know.
Well, it's easy. You just Google it, mate. Seriously. I mean, there's a limit on how much any party can spend, any candidate can spend in a by-election. And remember, most of the volunteers are volunteers, so that costs nothing.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, they were a pain in the butt, I must say.
I teach you, you just got to deal with it now. It's democracy. You've got to get over it. Tongue in cheek, 21 after 10, 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. It's terrible news from Uxbridge, where Boris Johnson was due later today to make an appearance at the T-shirt shop run by one of this programme's biggest fans and most comprehensive contributors. They've just been informed that he's pulled out of that visit, which is a shame, because they'd made him a special T-shirt that says, I wanted to be Prime Minister, but all I got was this lousy T-shirt. Simon is in Kingston, which is in the constituency, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Good morning.
What do we think?
I agree with the last caller. It was a massive juggernaut effort by Lib Dems. I must have had 20 leaflets coming through the door, newspapers, God knows what, all about Brexit. The whole thing was Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. Poor old Zac Goldsmith, we only got one leaflet from him, and in fact he actually knocked on our door with his mum and all the rest of the family walking around on one of the last nights. It was just a sea of Lib Dem volunteers walking around during the day, all with their little badges on. It was just a massive effort by Lib Dem to sort of to get in there, and it was all about Brexit, nothing else.
But I mean, I could have been marching around with 1 million volunteers calling for, everyone to vote for me. They have to have been attracted to the message that was being sold, unless you're suggesting that they're just a sort of bunch of goldfish who followed the flakes to the top of the tank. Where the hell did that analogy come from?
The majority of the people around here would have voted to remain.
70%. It's almost unique,
yes.
Actually.
Yes. And in fact, I am an opposite. I actually voted for Brexit, and we have to keep our head down, because all our friends would be actually shocked and horrified if we admitted that we actually voted for Brexit.
No, they just want you to explain why.
I can easily explain why, but not on this occasion. But as I say, for Zac, as you say, he resigned for and only for Heathrow. And unfortunately, the Lib Dems hijacked that idea and turned it into Brexit. They were also going on about Heathrow.
Hasn't opposition to Heathrow, hasn't opposition to the third runway always been the Liberal Democrats' party policy?
Yes, but
I mean, they can hardly be accused of hijacking it then, can they? I mean, in many ways, Zac Goldsmith fought as a Tory at the last by-election. He's hijacked Heathrow.
Right from the beginning, he's always been anti-Heathrow. He said right.
Yeah, but he fought on the Conservative Party's manifesto at the last general election, didn't he? And the Liberal Democrats' manifesto actually opposed a third runway at Heathrow. So I'm just not letting you get away with hijacking as a verb to describe a party policy printed in a manifesto.
Yeah, but David Cameron, if you remember, said never, not on my watch would the third runway get through, and look what he's done. Obviously he wasn't there.
He's done nothing, mate. Theresa May has announced that the third runway is going to be announced. What a shame we haven't got time for you to explain why you voted for Brexit. I have a feeling it would have been great fun. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Very nice to see the Daily Mail celebrating immigration on its front page today with a beautiful picture of the late Andreas Siegfried Sachs, a German Jewish migrant who fled to this country from persecution under the Nazis and was able to build a life and a home. Oh, sorry, I've misunderstood. No, migrant numbers hit new records is the headline on the front page of the Daily Mail. The picture of Andrew Sachs, who of course came to fame playing the Spanish migrant Manuel in Fawlty Towers, makes no mention whatsoever of his refugee status. Oh well. Ben's in Kingston. Ben, what do you think?
Hiya, James.
Hello,
yeah. I think it was mainly a vote about Brexit. But
it was, actually. I have to say earlier, and I'll give you plenty of time to talk, I promise, as I'm already reviewing my position that it didn't mean anything about anything. Everyone's telling me it was about Brexit.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was mainly about Brexit. You know, the Sunday Politics did come round and ask people in Richmond what they thought, and they said they're mainly concerned about Brexit, not Heathrow. And I was at one of the hustings, and I asked Zac Goldsmith why he was out campaigning with people from the Conservative Party, including people who are pro-expansion, and he said that, it's people that are his friends and blah, blah, blah. And I think people just thought, well, there's sort of a facade that he's holding up here, that, he's claiming he's independent, but he's still chained to the Tory party, he's still got all of his friends there.
Did he look arrogant to you?
Does Zac Goldsmith seem arrogant?
Yeah. The whole thing. I mean, hubristic is an overused word, but you know, the pride before a fall. It was a straight. I know he describes it as a point of epic principle, but when you end up fighting a by-election on a single issue that everybody that you're fighting against agrees with you on, you do look a bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely, because he said that right at the start, and then he saw who the candidates were, and they were all saying the same things as him on Heathrow. So there was an element of that. But I do think sort of he tried to do his best by keeping his promise that he would resign if the government decided to expand Heathrow. But I think it was also mainly just to further his image. It had been damaged quite a lot during the mayoral campaign. He thought, you know, people here still support me. And the reality is, you know, everyone around here has been putting up signs for the Lib Dems over the last couple of weeks. You know, I take the bus through here every day.
We had it about 50-50. We had Sunday lunch in the constituency on Sunday, and we were counting the posters. Makes a change from playing mini cheddar. Do you ever play mini cheddar, Ben?
No.
You sound too young to have children. Are you too young to have children?
Yes.
Well, we normally play mini cheddar, which means you get 1 point for a mini, you get 2 points for a yellow car, 5 points for a mini cheddar, which of course is a yellow mini.
Okay.
So instead of that, we were counting the posters. I tell you what, life in my family is one long laugh, mate. It really is. And we were counting the posters on the way back from Sunday lunch. We got about 50-50 by the time we hit the A316.
Well, yeah, no, I do agree with that. But I also think there's a lot, in Richmond particularly, and Sheen as well, part of the constituency, the high streets are littered with small businesses, and they really don't want what the government is offering for them in terms of the Brexit that they're seemingly putting forward. We don't really know what they're putting forward, though. It's very confusing.
Well, no, we may get on to that in the second hour. So if Brexit was the reason for the result, I'm afraid I'm going to stand by my suggestion that it's not actually very significant on a national scale, but maybe we need to review that position. Ben, thank you. 28 minutes after 10 is the time. How many people now are going to be playing mini cheddar during the long car journeys that they've got with the kids over Christmas? Well, you're very welcome. 28 minutes after 10. A couple of phone lines free if you want to grab the one that Ben just vacated. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. 70% remain, Richmond, which kind of goes with the territory. Very high levels of education and success in that constituency. And, of course, a lot of the vote to leave was motivated by a feeling, a justified feeling of being left behind, of somehow not being part of growth, not being part of globalisation. Richmond very much in the front line, I suppose, of material wealth and material success, but as Ben suggests, that actually might have a double effect, given that if you are running a business and you've already seen the pound tank, petrol's about to go up. This is going to put costs on everybody's overheads. Petrol going up is caused by OPEC, not caused by Brexit. But of course, the pound tanking against the dollar means that the petrol is even more expensive than it would have been if we hadn't voted to leave the European Union. And the first cost that many businesses look at is fuel. So maybe it was a more sophisticated and more complicated vote than I gave it credit for at 10 o'clock this morning. Or, of course, maybe it wasn't. That's the voice we'd like to hear next. 0345 6060 973. You're reading too much into it. It was a protest vote. This is usually what happens. Government is, Theresa May's only a few months into her premiership, but the Conservative government is 18 months old, and usually they get a bloody nose at this point in proceedings. It's just, of course, that Her Majesty's official opposition has ceased to be the maypole around which anti-government voting gathers or coalesces. That's the strangest thing, and no one's mentioned the Labour Party yet. Maybe that's normal. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. And of course it is just one by-election, although you are seeing it generally. I say you as a kind of collective noun to describe people getting in touch with the programme, are mostly of the view that it was actually a fairly resounding reminder that 16-odd million people in this country feel profoundly unrepresented in Parliament at the moment in the context of Brexit negotiations. In fact, everybody's unrepresented in the context of Brexit negotiations, but of course a lot of people don't realise that because they're too busy sticking their fingers in their ears and shouting, "You lost, get over it," when other people respond by saying, "Well, no, we know that. I'm just wondering where we're going. That's all. I just wonder where we're going." You lost, go over it. We're going through that door there. Yeah, but what's on the other side, mate? No idea. Now come with me. We're dragging you through it. Now, yeah, but can we just have a look through the letterbox? Can we just have a little look at what's on the other side of this door that you've voted to drag us all through? No, shut up. Get over it. But surely you want to know what's on the other side of the door. You want to have a sort of idea, no? Like the vaguest notion of what you might be heading toward? No, not interested. You lost. Get over it. Really? You don't even want to look through the keyhole? Maybe just kind of see what's there? Have we still got access to the single market? Are we going to have to pay tariffs? Are we? We're still going to pay money to the European Union even though we've left? Don't be ridiculous. No one ever said that. Actually, David Davis said that yesterday. He's only the Brexit Secretary of State, I grant you, so maybe we shouldn't be paying too much attention to him. But he said yesterday that we might have to continue paying fees if we want to continue access to the largest single market in the world that we're no longer part of because we've decided to leave. Shut up! You lost, get over it. Okay. So which door are we going through? That one there. And what's on the other side again? I don't know. Shut up. Stop it. Leave. You lost, get over it. Oh, come on, guys. Can we, look, all right, everyone calm down. Can we have one more go at this? We are going through the door, okay? You won. And we're going with you, whether we want to or not. You're taking us with you, okay? Can you just give me a clue what's on the other side? Just a tiny little clue. A Scooby-Doo. No? Nothing? What's that? You lost, get over it. Yeah, no, I know that. Just tell me. Okay. 2016. 10:36 is the time. Back to Richmond Park. Charlie's there. Charlie, what do you make of it all?
Hi, James. It's the first-time caller. I'm a bit nervous, to be honest.
Don't be ridiculous.
But many points that are being brought up in your show. The first thing about let's have a revote. Your humorous comment, let's Goldsmith have a revote, because we knew what the Liberal Democrats stood for on their manifesto, and on all the calls we had for them, we knew what they stood for. We didn't know what EU stands for, or leaving the EU stands for. So we can demand a review of that. Lib Dems...
You're completely ignoring me. You didn't hear anything I just said. We're going through that door, and it's absolutely treasonous of you to ask what might be on the other side of it, Charlie. How dare you?
It's a classically tyrannical point of view you're putting forward in a humorous way, James. I get that.
Well, stop unpicking it, will you? It's like when Toto pulled back the curtain on The Wizard of Oz.
We can, as we did here. We could vote out James Goldsmith after his 60th stint here. We can't re-vote EU.
No.
It's a lifetime thing. And I remember going back, I'm 57 years old. Do you remember the show Auf Wiedersehen, Pat?
Of course, way I man.
When all the Geordies went over to Germany because there was no work in England. And I also remember pre-2004 when we were net emigrants out of this country, not immigrants, because there was no work in England.
You can prove anything with facts.
Yeah, so I've got a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old children. If they can't get a job here, and they can't go, we're now no longer allowing them to go to Europe to get a job. If unemployment, so let's say unemployment rises in this country for a change, James. We remember the days when unemployment was very high here. What happens when the unemployment rises here? We're banning our youth, we're banning our children.
Well, we may not be, actually, and this is the problem, is that you're describing what you think is on the other side of the door. It may not turn out to be that bad. David Davis conceding yesterday that we'll probably still need to ship in fairly huge numbers of unskilled migrants just to keep the ship afloat. But, of course, the challenge he faces is explaining that to the people with their fingers in their ears.
Absolutely.
And,
are we going to condemn our British people to become potato pickers in Boston and Lincolnshire?
Do you know,
people leave?
with the NFU, the NFU, and I know these facts are incredibly annoying, but the NFU estimates that the average, or reports that the average Brit turning up to do potato picking in the fields of Lincolnshire lasts on an average about 2 days.
Yeah, wasn't there a show about 4 years ago, I saw a documentary where they applied for 100 people up there in Lincolnshire, none of the Brits wanted to do it. Yes. So let's kick out the people that are picking...
Take me back to Richmond. Let's get back to Richmond. What do you think happened?
Well, very clearly, I mean, I've lived here for a long time, and, the area voted Zac in, and all the community here that I mix with, we're basically Zac's supporters. He's a local man, but he voted Brexit.
That was it.
And as simple as that.
So I'm completely wrong to suggest that his attitude during the mayoral election would have turned off a lot of people?
Well, there's that as well, but it was primarily Brexit. And, do you know, the MP, I'm an old-fashioned bloke, the MP has to represent the voice of his community. And maybe that's wrong, but he didn't represent us, as you rightly said.
On that issue.
The Lib Dems snookered him on the Heathrow, all the parties snookered him on Heathrow.
Yes.
So he was left with...
Any sympathy for him? I mean, you sound obviously as a whinging member of the metropolitan elite, you're probably possessed of some compassion and humility. So do you feel sorry for him?
Yeah, well, I think. Let me tell you, there's a politician who's a man of honour. We can knock him on anything on his.
No, I can't let you have that. Not. You see, after the mayoral campaign, that was about the definition of dishonourable for many people.
I can get you on that, but I can get you that he said I was going to resign if Heathrow went against it, and he did. And he must have known. He's not an idiot that he would have got a black eye on Brexit. And he didn't suddenly wake up and go, oh my God, blimey, Brexit, I'm going to lose. He thought this through. I don't agree with him, but at least he was a politician who said, I'm going to resign if Heathrow gets voted in, and he did.
Yeah, and he didn't realise. Presumably, he thought that we might have a slightly better idea of what was on the other side of the door by now, so people like you wouldn't be so frustrated and let down by the absolute mess that is in place. Despite the fact that, of course, people on your side of the argument predicted that an absolute mess was inevitable. 10:40 is the time. Dimitri is in Richmond Park as well. I tell you what, this is great, isn't it? A whole switchboard dedicated to people who actually were in the constituency we're discussing. And this will be true too when we do other constituencies outside the southeast. The way LBC is spreading across the nation at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised. Sleaford next, isn't it, in Lincolnshire? I wouldn't be surprised if we can do a whole show with voters actually living in that constituency. But Dimitri is in Richmond Park. Dimitri, what would you like to say?
James. Yes, well, I live in Ham, which is where Zac Goldsmith lives as well. So
beautiful part of the world. Beautiful part of the world.
Not the same type of building.
I was going to say, I bet his house is bigger than yours, isn't it?
Slightly. Yes, and I'm one of the rare people who voted Labour here.
Gosh.
I couldn't bring myself to vote Lib Dem.
Why not?
However...
no, why not? Oh, you'll get plenty of time.
Discipline. I'm not a registered Labour voter, but I inherited that from my former membership to the French Communist Party, where...
Gosh.
If you're a representative of the party you're meant to support is standing, you vote for him.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. But going back to why Lib Dem won, and why Labour didn't do well at all and worse than usual, is that any left-leaning person I know here, even registered Labour supporters, voted for her to kick Zac out.
So it was tactical.
Firstly, because it's a Conservative, but even for the other people who are not too much left-leaning, or if they are, there will be Green voters who decided not to stand during the election. So anyone left-leaning, whether it's moderate, whatever it is, Green, Labour, or anything else, would have voted Lib Dem. And I have friends, blue friends, well, Conservative friends,
yes,
die-hard Conservative, who lost their business. They didn't have to wait for the Article 50 to be triggered. They lost their business on the week following the vote. Arguably, that's not that many people, but it's quite shocking to know that some very small businesses who trade with Europe, and over here, most people I know here either are Europeans themselves, foreign of anything, Russian, whatever, South African, and have a spouse from the European Union, Spanish, whatever else.
Of course.
So the number of people who, though they can't vote, can influence people who could vote is massive here. So, yeah, it is whitish. It is relatively affluent, but we're not all that rich. And especially those who are not very rich do have to pay a lot to, remain here in a sense, to be able to afford the place. And they're all impacted. Many people are impacted by the vote. We're in London. My wife is French. My children are not British nationals. I'm already faced with, problems with university now on UCAS. I'm going to have to, well, it's not that difficult, but I'm going to, give my British nationality to my children. I have to re-become French for my future. As a previous caller said, I don't know what the future is going to be. I don't know if I'm still going to have a proper job in the UK, so in 10 years' time I might have to move. I don't know. All these things I don't know. And this is an area where people come from elsewhere. They do relatively well. They do relatively well on the basis of being able to move about, being very internationally minded, speak several languages. If you cut anything which allows them to live with that, basically they will no longer be able to afford them to,
But all of which really makes it a little bit silly that you voted Labour. Because they ain't providing any leadership on Brexit, are they?
They're not, but in the sense you mentioned before, you're talking about Brexit with we know...
That's all you've talked about, Dimitri, to be fair. It's all you've talked about. So to suggest that to vote for a party that provides no leadership on the only issue you've talked about makes you look a little bit daft.
I was just mentioning why...
In a nice way.
Why people voted for Lib Dems, not why I voted Labour. I just indicated one I was aware of people who did so, but that's not why Sarah Olney won.
No, I guess you also explain why they managed to secure fewer votes than they have members of the constituency Labour Party, apparently. I don't know if that's definitely true, but if it isn't, it's extremely close. Thank you, Dimitri. 10:45 is the time. Room for a few more calls on this. Or should we move on to after 11? Carry on with a little bit of this, or should we examine that analogy I just shared with you about the door? So, dry your eyes, mate. You lost. Get over it. Which is, it was never funny, but I mean, it's getting really tired now. I simply say, do you agree with my analysis? If you're one of these people, sort of, shut up, you lost, get over it. Dry your eyes, mate. Oh, I love your tears. I just say, look, do you agree with my analysis that you basically don't understand why anybody would be a little bit wary of running through a door without knowing what was on the other side? It might be a cliff on the other side. It might be an enormous lion on the other. Shut up, you lost. It might be might be an enormous man with a big gun. Shut up, you lost. You're coming with us. We're going through the door. What's on the other side? No idea at all. Oh, happy days. I mean, it's the 19th largest by-election swing on record, and there is a consensus that Brexit was the big deal. It wasn't Zac Goldsmith's it wasn't Zac Goldsmith's very cynical mayoral campaign where he was happy to sort of hitch himself to the Islamophobic tiger. Most people calling me today from the actual constituency, and most of them describing this notion of him voting to leave while representing a constituency with 70% support for Remain as being the dividing factor, something the Liberal Democrats obviously played on very hard. Unfortunately, you don't get to change your views according to the outcomes. Your views should really stay the same. And in a parliamentary democracy, you elect somebody to do what he or she believes to be in the best interest of the constituents, even if the constituents don't agree. But I guess expecting that to hold true during a by-election so hard upon the referendum may have been a little optimistic. Louise is in Wimbledon. Louise, what would you like to say?
Hi. Yes, I'm just on the border, and I'm in the Richmond Park constituency. So I did vote.
Does that add to your property value or detract from it?
I don't know. We don't have very good travel links here, so I think that's probably the biggest downer on our values. But I think there are a number of things that influenced me. When I moved here a few years ago, I was fairly indifferent to Zac. I think I thought he was doing a fairly good job and he was all right, and I might have voted for him. But come the mayoral election campaign, I was extremely turned off by his comments about Sadiq Khan, and I think whatever would have happened with the referendum, that would have been enough to make me not want to vote for him again. And then,
do you know, actually, to vote according to conscience, even though it goes against the wishes of your constituents, in a vote that is not whipped and not contained within manifestos, is quite admirable. I mean, that's a proper conviction politician you've got there.
Yes, I don't disagree with that. I slightly wonder whether he was trying to, I don't know. I think he got it wrong.
He did get it wrong, but it didn't look like he got it wrong in October, did it? It's not that long ago.
No, exactly. But he got it wrong with the mayoral election campaign as well. So yes, he might be a man of principle, but he's not a man of very good judgment.
I know you would wonder what those principles are when you bring the mayoral campaign into context. It's it's a strange time. I wonder what he'll do. I mean, it's not something we can comment upon with any information or knowledge, but what a reversal of fortune. Probably started the year thinking he'd be mayor of London by the end of it, one of the plumbest political jobs on the planet, and actually he's unemployed, albeit with £1 million a year from a trust fund he inherited from his father on his 18th birthday.
And funnily enough, I might have voted for him to be London mayor at the beginning of the campaign. I didn't think all that much of Sadiq Khan. I wasn't impressed by him as I think it was Shadow Justice Secretary. So I didn't think he particularly had what it takes.
I thought it was Zac's to lose. Yeah, like you, actually. Yeah. I thought it was Zac's to lose. I voted for both sides in mayoral elections in the past as a Londoner. So, like you, I was up for grabs, but it was his to lose, and my God, he lost it. And then he lost this as well. In 2016, a remarkable political year, mostly because he's the only politician to have blown a racist dog whistle in it and come off worse than he started. 10:53 is the time. Tony is in Fareham. Finally, we're out of the constituency. Tony, what would you like to say?
Yes, good morning, James. Regular listen to your programme, and I do visit Richmond often. And my point is that about your comments about why I left, why I wanted to leave the EU.
No, we're not talking about that today. I'm talking about what happens after we leave.
Well, Brexit.
Yes.
Yeah, Brexit. Well, first of all, the unemployment rates across the EU are very high, and if you look at I regularly go to Richmond, and I go to restaurants in Richmond, and a lot of the people there grace us with their presence from the EU because they cannot find work in their own countries.
It's funny, because a lot of people are telling me that the reason why Richmond voted to remain is because they don't have any immigrants among them, and they're completely out of touch, and they've got no idea what it's like, whereas you're I think, more accurately arguing the opposite. They know full well what the benefits of immigration are.
Yes, of course, and that's my point.
And I
I thoroughly welcome them because they obviously contribute, so they pay their taxes, they live here, and they get on with their lives.
Shame we might have to chuck them all out, isn't it?
Well, I don't. That's just it. I don't think we will.
I don't either. But that we don't know. This is the whole point about not knowing what's on that door that you voted to walk through. We might have to chuck them all out. Theresa May refused immediately of becoming Prime Minister to guarantee that their right to remain in this country. You know that as well as I do.
Yes, I do. Yes, well, but I'm sure that those accommodations will be met.
That's faith, mate. That's not knowledge. That's faith. And hope.
Well, that's faith, and I do have faith. I do have faith in Theresa May, and because I think she's been.
Why doesn't she just say so then? Why doesn't she tell all these people they're welcome to stay?
Because she's quite simply playing her cards, if you like, close to her chest, so as not to give away too much to.
But you think you've seen them? You think you know what's in her cards?
Bureaucrats. They are unelected bureaucrats, and they're telling us what to do. So,
Sorry, who are?
If you listen to Jean-Claude Juncker before the referendum, he quite clearly said, that's all you're going to get. Mr. Cameron got all he's going to get, and you're not going to get any more. And
we're veering slightly off slightly off the subject now. You think Theresa May is keeping her cards very close to her chest, but you're pretty confident what's on them?
Well, I think she'll do what's the best for the country, and I think you have to say,
But we don't really know what that is. What's best for the country? Many people would say economically would be retaining single market status and upholding the 4 pillars of freedom that are contingent upon that.
Well,
And also on the unemployment question, EU unemployment's gone down. Actually, it's the lowest it's been for 7 months at the moment.
Well, you try telling that to someone in Greece who's got 25.6% unemployment.
Okay, I will. Okay, shall I do it in Greece? Shall I do it in Greek?
Yeah, go on.
Enya ke octo. What's percent in Greek?
I'm not sure.
Well, it's easy to tell someone in Greece. So what you say is that in January 2016 it went down from 10.5 to 10.4%, and in October 2016 it's gone down to 9.8. I could probably do it in Greek.
In Greece,
you said 10% in the EU, mate. I'm telling you, it's gone down.
10% across the EU. The average of 10% across the EU.
It's gone down. It's the lowest it's been in 7 months. So anyway, you rang in to tell me that I didn't understand why people voted Brexit, and now I've got a better idea. Have I?
Well, maybe you have. Maybe
I have. To just comment on my analogy of the door. Let's just you and me, okay? We're both in a room. There's a door. You get 52% of the vote. I get 48% of the vote. You've won. We're going through the door. I ask you, can we at least have a little look at what might be on the other side? And you say what?
Well, I've read the newspapers. I read what's going on in Europe. I have a look and see what's going on Google in Europe. I know exactly what's going on with their economies. I can see it.
So do I. I'm asking where Britain is going to be. If Britain is going through the door, mate, what is on the other side of it?
Well, they're tied to the euro, a European army.
No. You voted to go through the Brexit door. So we lose our veto on the European army. That becomes more likely to happen when we leave, not less likely. So what have you voted for? Because you're taking me with you. Where are we going?
Well, I'm going with a steady economy. I'm going with.
But we've got a steady economy. You just cited Britain's economy as the reason why all these people want to come here. So what's going to be different? What's on the other side of the door? Not this side, Tony. The door that you voted to drag me through. What's on the other side?
Well, I think increased trade with other nations and stability. Increased
trade with other nations. So why do you think David Davis yesterday suggested we might have to pay money to do trade with the EU?
Well, I think that was always on the cards. There's going to be some sort of accommodation to pay to stay in the single market. To
people who say we definitely voted to leave the single market, shut up and get over yourself, because they're on the same side of this argument as you, and they're dragging me through the same door you're dragging me through, and you're arguing with him about what's on the other side now.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. But I mean, you know, we have.
You're not spooked yet.
I beg your pardon.
You're not spooked yet by what you're doing.
No, I'm
still
not,
dragging me through that door with the bloke who completely disagrees with you about what's on the other side.
And if we were outside of the EU today, would we look at what's happening across the EU, with what's happening in Italy with their referendum on their constitution at the moment?
Yeah, and as I said to you, that's got nothing to do with what's on the other side of the door. That's where we are now. What's on the other side of the door, Tony? I've got absolutely no idea, James, and I'm arguing furiously with an awful lot of people who also want to run through the door. They're convinced we're leaving the single market. Tony's convinced we're staying. No wonder Richmond Park was so cross.